How did he find meaning when everything seemed meaningless?
Well, he talks about the power of love even in the face of suffering. His wife, though physically absent, was a source of strength for him. He also used mental exercises to detach from his pain, imagining himself lecturing about the psychology of the camps.
So instead of letting his mind be consumed by his surroundings, he created a different reality for himself.
Precisely. He understood the importance of having a future goal, something to hold on to. He shares this really tragic story about a prisoner who clung to the hope of liberation on March 30th, only to die on that very day.
Oh, wow. That's so sad. It really highlights how a loss of hope can be just as devastating as physical hardship.
Exactly. And that's why in part two of the book, Frankl delves into the principles of logotherapy. He defines it as the search for meaning and responsibility in life. He uses some complex terms to describe these ideas, things like existential frustration, nogenic neuroses, and the existential vacuum.
Yeah, those are some big words. Can
Yeah,
you break those down for us?
of course.
Ugh.
So let's start with existential frustration. This refers to the feeling of meaninglessness that can arise when our will to meaning is blocked. It's like hitting a wall on your path to purpose.
So it's not just about feeling sad, it's about feeling like your life lacks direction.
Exactly. And that can lead to what Frankl calls nugenic neuroses. These aren't your typical neuroses stemming from psychological conflicts. They come from a deeper place, from struggling with the big questions of life and finding them unanswered.
So it's like an existential crisis, feeling lost in a vast, meaningless universe.
Exactly. Frankl calls that the existential vacuum, that feeling of emptiness and lack of purpose that can seep into our lives. He even suggests this existential vacuum contributes to what he calls the mass neurotic syndrome, particularly among young people.
What does that look like? What are the signs of this mass neurotic syndrome?
Think depression, aggression, addiction. Frankl sees these not just as isolated issues, but as symptoms of a deeper societal problem, a yearning for meaning that's often ignored or suppressed in our modern world.
That's pretty profound. So how do we combat this existential vacuum? How do we cultivate meaning in a world that often feels meaningless?
Frankl suggests several pathways. He emphasizes personal responsibility. He argues that even in suffering, we have choices. He encourages us to find a meaning in our actions, our relationships, and our creative pursuits. Things that give us a sense of purpose.
He also talks about finding meaning through suffering,
He does.
which seems counterintuitive at first.
It does. It's not about glorifying suffering. It's about understanding that even in unavoidable pain, we can choose how we respond.